If I ever happen to come upon an invitation to Mario's party, I'm going. Dude, how are you gonna say no to Marty's party? It's one of the best multiplayer experiences out there. The series is experiencing a bit of a renaissance right now, a sort of revival, all thanks to the newest game in the series, Mario Party Superstars. While it might not be the best or most original game in the series, it pretty much gives fans exactly what they've been clamoring for since the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages, for those who don't know, started with Mario Party 9 on the Wii and hit their peak with Mario Party 10 on the Wii's distant forgotten cousin. These two were despised by the entire fanbase because they took the familiar formula that everybody knew and loved and decided to stick everybody in a stinky wagon. It's like spending your evening Thanksgiving with the side of your family that doesn't like you very much. This fundamental change to the way that you play Mario Party took away most of the strategy and any of the unique and fun board designs, with every board just being a straight singular line. Since everybody moves together, you just kind of roll the dice until you can do something. And occasionally you'll play minigames by landing on the right space. Classic Mario Party is about saving up your coins, making decisions about when to use a certain path, and when to buy and use certain items so that you can get to the star before anybody else. A standard Mario Party will also have minigames between turns. These two games right here, they weren't it. Super Mario Party, which released in 2018, was a step in the right direction, returning to the classic formula, but it was more like a diet version of Mario Party, if that makes sense. The stupid car was gone, but the boards were smaller and less creative overall. Dice rolls only went from 1 to 6 as opposed to 1 to 10. There was this interesting mechanic of each character having their own dice, but it really didn't add much to the overall gameplay. For the most part, you're rolling smaller numbers on boards that are also overall smaller to compensate, and stars only cost 10 coins here. Now that's just sickening. Plus, they made other weird decisions, like these gold pipes, which literally take you directly to the star and they don't cost very much to purchase. The fact that there was no online when the game came out, and the fact that there were only 4 boards, yeah, this game may have been a return to form, but it was also a little disappointing. But that was 3 years ago, and now we live in a post-Mario Party Superstars world, and goddamn do I love this game. The classic formula is here in its full glory, and boy am I happy to be back at Marty's party. But wait! You saw the title of this video, and it's not about the newest Mario Party game in the series. That's right, I want to talk about Mario Party 8. But why exactly? Now that we're at a good place with the series, I've seen some tier lists pop up and just overall discourse surrounding the entire franchise as a whole, and what I consistently see is Mario Party 8 chilling firmly in the C tier, sometimes a little lower. 8 was the game that came out before 9, obviously. We're not talking about Kingdom Hearts here. 9, as we said earlier, was the downfall of the series, and 8 is a game that exists. At least that's what most fans will tell you if you ask them.
Mario Party 8! I'm sorry, but if you like this game, then you're a loser. From what I can tell, feelings on this one are super mixed. There's people who hate it. The worst game ever, completely based on luck and skill.
I've actually heard a lot of people hate this game and say it's the worst Mario Party game. And I'd say it's definitely not a bad game. It's just kind of an average one, really.
7th worst, Mario Party 8, the one with the too many motion controls. As the 8th installment released just within the Wii's launch window, you'd expect Mario Party 8 to be some lazy, motion control driven cash grab, and it doesn't do much to break that expectation.
Unfortunately, the boards aren't the greatest in Mario Party 8.
Yeah, Mario Party 8 wasn't all that good. Not terrible, but its over-reliance on motion controls and each board changing up the core rule set, it didn't really sit well with fans.
And while I wouldn't go as far as to say it's the worst game ever, but I would say that a lot of the praise for this game is, highly exaggerated.
And at number 1, the best Mario Party game is Mario Party 8.
It's usually relegated to the status of being the one that came out right before the Dark Ages, and then upon saying that, nobody really has anything else to say, other than to make the same exact joke about how phallic this screen looks, and complain about the motion controls. Despite being the 4th best-selling console ever, the Wii in general has a pretty bad reputation as the thing that everybody bought to play Wii Sports, and then bought 3 more of because why not? This generation had really good games, including some of my favorite entries in long-running Nintendo franchises, but it also had Waggle, and Waggle will forever be the legacy of the Wii. And by proxy, Mario Party 8 was seen as the Mario Party game with Waggle. Oh, sorry, sometimes you jerk it to the left too. But if you read the title of this video, then you'll know that I think Mario Party 8 is pretty good. Pretty great, actually. I'm not going to make the claim that it's the best in the series or anything, but I think this game is massively underrated and has a reputation that it frankly doesn't deserve. It's at least B tier. The general consensus is that games 1 through 7 are undoubtedly the best, and then 8 is just okay, and serves as the transition to everybody's worst nightmare. But is that really true? Is this game really worse than Mario Party 4? Or Super Mario Party? Or the very first game in the series? To me, no, but naturally everybody's gonna have a strong opinion and bias for whichever Mario Party games they played and grew up with. Mario Party 8 just so happens to be the first game in the series that I ever played. Wait, don't go. Yes, I have a bit of bias, but to be fair, I also used to hate this game. Back in 07, when I was 9 or whatever, I saw a commercial for Super Paper Mario, and the whole 3D flip gimmick seemed really cool to me, and I needed to play that game. Being a total noob to Mario, I went to Blockbuster and rented Mario Party 8 by mistake. I was quite peeved to say the least. Eventually I took it back and got Super Paper Mario for Christmas, but the feelings of resentment that I harbored towards this game lingered for a hot minute. Eventually, however, I realized that I needed more multiplayer games, so I asked for Mario Party 8, cause what else was I gonna take a chance on? I played it with a friend, and from that point forward, I started liking the series. And shortly thereafter, I tried Mario Party DS, 4, 7, and even after trying all of those Mario Party games, I enjoyed 8 just a little bit more. But I think now I'm pretty capable of looking at this game objectively, having experienced the vast majority of the series. I've played just about every Mario Party game, excluding 9, the GBA one, and most of 3. I can acknowledge 8 as not being the best that the series has to offer, but I also think that objectively, there's a lot here that deserves another look. And I'd like to see certain aspects of the game come back in the future. The fact that Mario Party Superstars uses 100 classic minigames from across the series, and only 2 were chosen for Mario Party 8? Wow, the disrespect. So please humor me for a few moments as I try to explain why I think Mario Party 8 is pretty great. Released in 2007, this was the 8th entry in a series that released practically annually. By this point, the series had started to grow a bit stale, and it was hard to distinguish one Mario Party game from another. 6 had this gimmick of every board including a day and night cycle, and 7 had boards that were themed to different parts of the world, with this motif of a cruise going all around the Mario universe. So what exactly did 8 do? Well, on the surface, when you ignore the platform that it was made for, it looks like your standard Mario Party game. But dig a little deeper and you'll find what I consider to be an above average party hardy. The title screen starts up and Mario's not f***ing around. You can even torture him till the end of time if you so choose. Get into the game and we learn that we've been invited to the Star Carnival. This rejected Psychonauts character gives us the spiel and we get to choose which tent we want to visit. For now, let's focus on the party tent since that's where the core Mario Party experience lies. It's your standard Mirtha Gertha. You can do the normal game mode, which here it's referred to as Battle Royale, meaning that Fortnite and PUBG are just cheap imitations of Mario Party 8. You can also do a duel with just 2 players, plus team battles. This character roster is pretty big, and my boy Dry Bones is here. This is where my love for the character started, and his absence in Mario Party Superstars makes me quite sad. Quick, the Dry Bones fandom is dying. Repost this for your true boner. You could choose anywhere from 10 to 50 turns, adjusting by increments of 5. I've only ever done a 50 turn game once, and I never want to do it again, but that doesn't mean I don't want the option to come back. Let's talk about the 6 boards, shall we? What I love about this board selection is that each one puts a different twist on the standard gameplay, adding slight changes to the standard get coins and buy stars action without being as drastic as the stupid car from the later games. Some fans weren't too keen on this, but given that this was the 8th game in the series, I think a little experimentation was well deserved. And with a couple of exceptions, I think the execution is pretty rock solid. So with all that out of the way, let's see what these locales are all about. DK's Treetop Temple is up first, and this is where you go to get your fix of the standard Mario Party formula. This is the only stage of the game that provides a traditional Mario Party experience without any extra gimmicks. It has a 2D side-scroller perspective, which I think is a bit different, but this is about as standard and run-of-the-mill as a Mario Party board can get, complete with optional forks in the road and cannons that can launch you to other sections of the board if you have money. We have our standard blue and red spaces, with blue giving you 3 coins and red taking 3 away, plus green event spaces that can either punish you or help you depending on which one you land on. Stars will spawn at random predetermined spots, and the first to get to one with 20 coins gets to buy the star. We have a DK space returning from the GameCube Mario parties, and landing on this bad boy will help you out dramatically. Or maybe it'll help somebody else out who's in a better position to benefit. Each effect varies depending on the board that you choose, and in this case, he flings you right at the star, which helps if you have the coins to afford it, but punishes you if you don't have enough money, meaning that you're gonna miss out on the shiny boy. After landing on a DK space, it then switches over to a Bowser space, and landing on this bad boy will move the star to a random spot on the board, which may or may not punish you. Sometimes it can benefit you if another player was about to get the star and you just so happen to be on the opposite side of the map. Each board has 2 of these spaces, meaning that they're pretty rare to land on, but are still somewhat common and you're more than likely going to experience it at least once. There's also a single lucky space on each board, which warps players to a side area that loads them up on coins and gives them a free star. So you'll definitely want to land on this whenever you get the opportunity. Dotted around the map are stores where you can purchase candy. The pieces of candy are this game's version of items, and we have quite a few to choose from. Some of my personal favorites are the Springo candy, which allows you to warp to another player's position on the map, and the Vampire candy, which allows you to steal coins from every player at once. These can really make a difference and turn a game around fast. You also get a random piece of candy for free at predetermined spots on the map, so you'll definitely want to swing by these areas if you can. So now that we've used DK's Treetop Temple as the vessel for explaining the core mechanics of the game, is there anything else worth noting about this board specifically? Not really. In another Mario Party, this would be a pretty middle-of-the-road board, but in a game that doesn't have any other traditional boards, I'm glad it's here. Moving on. Goomba's Booty Boardwalk is up next, and it's just okay. This is a linear stage with no alternate paths. Me saying that probably gives Mario Party veterans war flashbacks, but I assure you, this is much better than anything in Martha's Party 9 and 10. Each player still has independent dice rolls, as is supposed to be the case in a normal Mario Party, and the goal is to get as far as possible so that you can get to the end where you're rewarded with a free star. Upon collecting the star, you get sent back to the start of the stage and go through the whole thing all over again. In theory, there wouldn't really be a whole lot of strategy to this, but in practice, there's actually more than you would think. Dotted along the path are these dolphin stations where you can pay a fee to travel ahead a set number of spaces. Most players will opt to take the dolphin, but in doing so you'll bypass stores where you can purchase candy, along with lucky and DK spaces. Plus you'll bypass other dolphin spaces, which can take even more spaces ahead at once. You'll have some decisions to make there, and the choices become more important when you consider the way candy works. On a board like this, the Springo candy is especially helpful if you're near the back and somebody happens to be at the front. Of course, doing well in minigames also means more coins that allows you to pay for more dolphin rides and candy, so skill does definitely factor into this. I'm especially fond of this space close to the end, which sends anyone who lands on it back to the start empty-handed. It's just that right amount of chaos that I love. The DK space here just gets you more coins, and Bowser space makes you play a game where you can lose your coins. Not very exciting. All in all, it's not an amazing board, but it's pretty solid in my opinion. I mostly enjoy it aesthetically, and I like the feeling of moving several spaces all at once. It just does something to my monkey brain, I guess. King Boo's Haunted Hideout is next, and I have some mixed feelings about this board. On one hand, I adore the aesthetic design of it all. I'm especially fond of the music and atmosphere, but depending on the party setting, this is kind of an annoying board to play. The gimmick here is that the layout of the board changes in between every star that's collected. At random, 4 rooms are placed at dead ends, and only one of these 4 possibilities is going to be the correct one. Go to the proper room, and King Boo will sell you a star for just 10 coins. If you go to the wrong room, you get sent back all the way to the start and have to try a different path. It's pretty much all luck-based, and there's not really a lot you can do to ensure that you're going on the right path. The best you can really do is to choose a direction opposite of your opponent who's ahead of you, or to use candy to steal coins from players or warp to their position. Even then, you're still at the behest of RNGesus, who didn't particularly like me when I was playing this board. Perhaps I performed the cardinal sin of expressing opinions on YouTube, and this is my punishment. Can't say I don't deserve it. To be fair, I played mostly against CPUs for this video, and ain't nobody having a good time losing to a robot. I can definitely have a good time with the stage when I'm playing with a group of friends, but only if they can laugh at the increased luck factor to this board. I do like that each experience is different, but the heavy reliance on luck being on my side makes this one a bit weaker to me overall. I have to be in the right mood to actively play this board and not want to tear my hair out. Alright, well we're about halfway done talking about the boards, and I could keep going, but I think this is where I'd like to take a break and pivot to talk about the minigames. We'll get back to these other 3 boards, don't you worry. Mario Party 8's selection of minigames can be pretty hit or miss, but if you've played any other game in the series, that isn't anything new. Minigames aren't necessarily supposed to be fun on their own, they're supposed to be fun in a short burst and complement the overall board game experience. A lot of the minigames in Mario Party 8 have a negative reputation, and that stems from the use of motion controls in a good chunk of these minigames. I think a lot of these complaints are a tad overblown. Yeah, the Wii's motion controls can be jank sometimes, but most of these minigames work within the limitations of the Wii Remote, and a good chunk of these games just straight up use buttons. Every facet of the Wii Remote is put to use, and there are some pretty clever uses of this technology. For starters, there are a few games that have you pointing and shooting at things, and those work pretty good. The pointer is super responsive, and in general, I had no issues with any of these games. The one where you shoot boos was pretty engaging, and this tile pushing one felt a lot like that one game that you play at Dave & Buster's where you gotta push blue buttons fast. Yeah, I liked it. All in all, these are pretty solid. The only pointer-based minigame that I had issue with was this one. For some reason, the horizontal movement was different from the vertical movement. It's really hard to explain, but I basically had to move along the horizontal axis a lot more than I did with the vertical one, and it threw me off a bit. I mean, I still won this minigame, I just thought it was kind of weird. As is the standard with Maretha Franklin Party, we have 4-player free-for-alls, 1v3s, 2v2s, 1v1 duel games, and a few solo games as well. Each of these categories sees its fair share of control schemes. Continuing on, we have tilting games, which come in a few flavors, horizontal and vertical. Most of these involve piloting or driving a thing. When controlling games like this, it can feel a bit finicky, but for the most part, I felt in control. Now I get that some people will demand precise, perfect controls, but bro, this is Mario Party. Most games in the series are intentionally difficult to control as a way of leveling the playing field, and I think that these minigames with motion controls strike a good balance of just that, making me feel like I'm the one making things happen on the screen, but also having that slight bit of unpredictability that keeps even skilled players on their toes. If Mario Party were entirely skill-based, it wouldn't be as fun to me. Too much randomness and it can be frustrating, but too much skill and it's not as exciting. Most games strike a good balance, and these minigames are largely skill-based. Mostly. Games like Treacherous Tightrope and Cosmic Slalom work fine enough, but games like Cartastrophe, let's just say this ain't Mario Kart. Again, the controls work good enough, and when it comes to a Mario Party minigame, good enough is good enough. Last up for the motion controls are waggle games, which come in many varieties. A few of these are just pure shake the Wii Remote as hard as you can, which is kinda boring. But these aren't very different from some of the older minigames where you would have to push buttons as quickly as possible. Some of these can feel a bit janky, but they work decent enough. This one right here where you have to clean the chain chomp, or the most famous one where you have to shake a can of soda to release colored liquid, it works good. Some minigames also just opt to use shake as a button press, which works decently well. Motion control minigames are only a little over half of the story though, and the rest are exclusively button controls, or in the case of certain 1v3 or 2v2 games, we have a combination of button and motion controls. Weirdly enough, I don't see motion controls as the biggest flaw that the minigames have. The problem I have is that there are just a few too many luck-based minigames for my liking. I'm not against luck-based minigames existing in a Mario Party, but goddamn, show some restraint, guys. They're fun on occasion, but pop up just a bit too much for my liking. Alright, so now that we've taken a detour to talk about minigames, let's get back to our discussion on boards. More like, I'm bored. Shy Guy's Perplex Express is a board that's perplexing. It exists, and the best way to sum it up is that it's essentially Goomba's Booty Boardwalk, but on a train. The train setting is interesting, but it also feels a little claustrophobic. You gotta get to the front of the train and pay 20 coins for a star, but rather than getting sent back after getting the star, you run along the top of the train and have to loop your way back around. There are no built-in ways to get to the front faster, but the train is smaller overall to compensate. This is a board where having a thrice candy really comes in handy. Adding to the chaos is a space that can swap you between being inside or on top of the train, and can either bring you closer to the star or push you further back. Certain spaces can also shift the cars around, leading to even more chaos, making this a board that can have a dynamic layout, which is pretty interesting. It's a cute little board, but when it comes to personal preference, I don't like this one as much as Goomba's Booty Boardwalk. It's not as luck-based as Boo's Haunted Hideout, but it still leans a bit too much into that for my liking. The closest thing I had to a strategy was using a Slow-Go candy to roll the exact number that I needed to land on a Bowser space and screw over the other player near the front, only to then have a CPU land on a DK space and undo all my hard work. Thanks. So far, I've complained about pretty much every board to at least some extent, but listen here, you beautiful, beautiful viewer. That all ends here. The fifth board is Koopa's Tycoon Town, and this is easily the best board in the entire game. What we have here is a complete shakeup to the way that Mario Party is played. Rather than buying stars like normal, the board is littered with hotels. Each player has an account at a hotel and can deposit coins for whichever one they happen to pass by. The player with the most coins in their bank account at a specific hotel becomes the owner of that hotel. The combined sum of all coins from all players who invested is added up, and it turns into a 2-star hotel at 20 coins and a 3-star at 50. The value of the hotel equates to stars that the owner earns. We have multiple forks in the road and 5 hotels to choose from. I complained about a lack of strategy with the last 2 boards, and Koopa's Tycoon Town makes up for that and then some with its insane amount of strategizing. You have so many choices to make at any given time. Do you deposit coins in a hotel and risk another player putting in more coins and stealing the hotel from you, using your coins to increase the value of their hotel? Do you instead go in a different direction to claim another hotel? Do you deposit coins now so you can come back later and claim it for yourself? How many coins do I deposit? Do you buy candy instead? And if you do, when's the best time and place for you to use it? There are so many things to consider, and I think that's what makes this board especially fun. The DK space sees Seth Rogen investing in a random account of yours, with Bowser stealing from one of your accounts. The Lucky Space, which is located close to the starting area, takes you to a special area with a hotel where you can choose to invest as much as you happen to have on you. But what makes this interesting is that another player can also land on the Lucky Space, go to this hotel, and steal it from right under your nose, making this a lucky space that can really backfire for whoever happens to land on it first. Stars are constantly being gained and lost, and it always feels like something important is happening. The overall aesthetic of the city setting is probably the least interesting visually, but the gameplay mechanics of this board definitely make up for that, making this the undisputed king of boards in Mario Party 8. But we're still not done talking about all the boards. We have one more to talk about, and that's Bowser's Warped Orbit. More like Bowser's Deflated Sphincter. By default, you can't play on this board, and you have to beat the single player mode in order to unlock it. Here, everybody starts with 5 stars by default, and those are the only stars that exist. Instead of going around the board and purchasing stars, you instead battle it out with the other players and use 2 pieces of candy that are specific to this board to steal stars from your competitors. The Bowser candy lets you roll 2 die, and you'll steal 2 stars from any player that you pass. The Bullet Bill candy gives you 3 dice rolls, but you can only steal a single star from every player that you pass, adding this nice risk-reward system to the whole affair. Most of the other types of candy are also here as well. The entire thing is this big loop with these smaller paths that can be used to strategically hide from other players, since it automatically alternates between paths. There are a few event spaces that also completely reverse the direction that you're going on the board. Since you ideally want to be right behind somebody so that you can use candy to steal stars, this can change things up drastically. I didn't have quite as much fun here as I did with Koopa's Tycoon Town, but this is another concept that I greatly enjoyed, and it's definitely a highlight of the game in my opinion. Kind of annoying that it has to be unlocked though. It didn't land on a DK space, so I don't know what it does here, but I can tell you that the Lucky Space is kind of underwhelming here because all it does is load you up on candy. We've also seen a lot of sci-fi Bowser-themed space boards, so this one's not particularly interesting with its theme, but that aside, this is a great way to round out this selection of boards. With the exception of Big Boo's Haunted Hideaway and Shy Guy's Perplex Express, which aren't bad, just a bit too luck-based for my liking, the game has a solid selection of boards overall, with 2 great boards, 2 pretty good boards, and 2 acquired taste boards. These are all just my subjective opinion, of course, and I've seen all kinds of opinions on these boards, but hopefully I've done a good job of explaining why I feel the way that I do. So we've covered the main party mode pretty extensively, but what else does this game have to offer? As mentioned earlier, there's a single-player story mode, and I use story in massive air quotes. You basically play a bunch of 1v1 board matches against a CPU until you get to the final board, and this is the only way that you can unlock Bowser's Warped Orbit. While playing the game to unlock that board for the video, I grew to really resent this mode. After eventually beating the mode, I came out of it reflecting on how sad it is to play Mario Party by yourself, which is what I had to do for this video. This mode is capped off with a one-off minigame that sees you fighting Bowser. Now that I'm thinking about it, this was my first ever final Bowser boss fight that I ever played. I never want to play this mode again, but I needed to unlock this board so that you could all look at it. So now we're gonna look at it some more, goddammit, because I worked really hard to get it. Yeah, that's right, you keep staring at that. We have a minigame tent, which is standard in any Mario's Fiesta game, and with these comes a few unique modes. Lastly, we have the Extras Zone, where you can play one of 10 minigames that you can't play anywhere else. Oh shit, guys, you can play Star Wars Episode 1 Racer! So that's Mario Party 8, and yeah, it's far from perfect, but I love a lot of what this game did. We can hang around all day and nitpick things like the motion controls, the inconsistent, jarbled mess that is the game's font selection, with 5 different fonts happening all at once. I think I'm gonna puke. The fact that the game is in 4:3 aspect ratio with no option to go full widescreen, or the fact that while the mini-games themselves run at 60 frames a second, the board game component only runs at 30, which I'm surprised I never really noticed before. I mean, if there's any place that you want to have 60 frames, it's during the mini-games, but it is kind of strange that the main boards are stuck at 30 frames when the GameCube Mario parties all ran at 60. Nitpicks aside, there are some larger criticisms that are also valid, like the boards that kinda suck, and the instances where motion controls are used when they really don't need to be. But to me, these blemishes aren't enough to tarnish my overall enjoyment of this Mario Party experience. A lot of the game is just average or decent, but boards like Koopa's Tycoon Town and Bowser's Orbital Sphincter are super unique, super cool, and I'd love to see either these boards or boards that utilize similar concepts to come back if Mario Party Superstars ever gets DLC, or a sequel that focuses on the later games in the series. Bring these stages back, along with a few more mini games from Mario Party 8, and I'd be a pretty happy camper. Imagine a hypothetical alternate timeline where Mario Party 8 came out on the Switch, after games like 9 and 10, except those games would be called 8 and 9 in this universe because Mario Party 8 wouldn't have existed. Take this game, but with the updated graphics and controls that are optimized for the Switch, and I can guarantee you that fans would have been a lot more receptive to it. You've got the one board that gives you that standard Mario Party experience, and 5 others that put unique spins on the overall gameplay. Some hit or miss, but a lot of them being pretty enjoyable. I think even the worst boards in Mario Party 8 are superior to the boards that came with Super. This game also has a lot more charm and personality than the Switch game in my opinion, and was a better value with its 6 boards compared to the 4 mediocre boards of Super. This was also the last entry in the series to be developed by Hudson Soft, the developers that made all the other games that people love in the series. In essence, this was their swan song, and I don't think it deserves a lot of the criticism and backlash and just overall disdain that the fanbase chucks at it. Hopefully I've been able to convince you that the game is maybe a bit better than you remember if you happen to play it back in the day, and if you've never played it, then look into that if you happen to have an old Wii lying around. So I want to give a thanks to the developers at Hudson Soft for making a pretty good game. So thanks Hudson for making a game that got me into the series and that gave me a lot of good childhood memories. So Nintendo, can we please get Dry Bones back in the newest Mario Party? Come on, the fate of the Bonedom lies on your shoulders.